None of you have heard of her, Jodie Lee. The amount of money that was pumped in to the act that is Jodie Lee is phenomenal, and none of you have heard of her. So I came across Jodie because the guy I was managing, she was signed to Independiente as well. She wasn't signed, she had a development deal. She didn't earn a penny. The guy I was managing, they asked him to produce sort of half an album for her. And as we were kind of doing this, they were paying him kind of 20 grand a track to work on. The amount of money they actually threw at that development deal was absolutely staggering. They said to me, can you kind of try and get some other producers to work on this track? And money's not an object. So we worked with an outfit called Merlin, who are kind of Swedish or Norwegian. They were from Scandinavia, and there are about 4 of them, and they were charging kind of 50 grand a track for a production. But they said we want a big name to produce. And so we got Wyclef. Okay, so we got Wyclef. We went over there to New York for the weekend, and they paid Wyclef $100,000 for a day's work, just to put a track together, and it was a really awful track. They didn't care because it had Wyclef's name all over it, and he sort of did a rap of about 3 words in the song, but all of a sudden it sort of, you know, added value to the album. The album was never released. I think that single was released and charted at around number 40 something. But in Jodie Lee, they put in, I would say, just in production alone, and studio time and things like that, they put in over £1 million. Now, the difference with today, of course, is they expect the artists to have done all the development work themselves and almost to be market ready. But actually, in those days, they were, and this is only 10 years ago, but they were still prepared to throw money at the act. My next point is, I mean, I don't know, you lot know more about the industry today than I possibly could. But bearing in mind our work was largely in the kind of UK garage urban scene. It was dominated by independent labels, small, kind of very small outfits. And the business model was actually about indie labels signing acts and then major labels coming in to buy up the acts. And that was the whole business model. You know, indie labels wanted to find acts and do the A&R, and then for a major to come along and say, we'll give you 100 grand for that single. You know, that was the model. But I don't know what the situation is today. It was also the time when there were big kind of events going on, and there were lots of brands around club nights. And of course, the club promoters then ventured into setting up their own labels. So all of that was going on as well. It was quite a creative time. I think then the industry was prepared to take much more risk around investment, and I don't think that risk is there today. As I say, it's, you know, if you haven't had X number of hits on YouTube, if you haven't got something touring under your belt, then, you know, will they look at you? I don't know. I would also say that back then, the industry was more switched on to what was happening culturally in society. You know, so that whole kind of So Solid thing, they paid a hell of a lot of money, but it was the emergence of a particular kind of subculture in society, and the labels were really switched on to what was going on, and I'm not sure that is the case now. I don't know. If you want to disagree, disagree. Don't let me talk at you, for God's sake. Next slide, please, Mark. My take on the world now is that I don't see a master plan for the future of the industry. You know, most businesses, most industries, take the airline industry. Those guys that run airlines, they have their model for the next 20 years worked out. They know exactly where they're going. This industry doesn't. I don't think there is a master plan for the industry. I think they're looking for you as artists now to be entrepreneurs and to do all the legwork and the groundwork yourself. I think that, so you know, where you sit now, the skills that you need now are much more different from the skills that you needed 10, 15 years ago. I think now they're looking for proven markets. They're looking for markets that they know, you know, that acts will sell in particular markets. They're also looking for you to be already popular in a particular market. And of course, you've got the whole X Factor thing, and that wasn't going on then. You know, the ready-made star. The thing that hasn't changed though between then and now is then and now they kind of chewed artists up and spat them out. And you know, looking back on it, with the So Solid crew, basically we were talking about 30 kids with no education, but a hunger and desire for fame and money. And they were used as a commodity. And the fact that loads of them ended up in prison at the end, the labels had no responsibility for that whatsoever. So I don't think that's changed today. Is the internet a threat or an opportunity for the record industry? It should be, shouldn't it? But I'm not convinced at how switched on they are to that opportunity.
I think that artists, we're more switched on about it, so we should take advantage of that rather than them take advantage of us, which is better for us, basically.
Yeah, but as artists, you know, your knowledge of marketing, self-promotion, PR, you know, has to be really strong. You know, all these new skills, it's no longer about...
I think it's better, it makes the artist more diverse as opposed to just being like, I'm going to be on stage and people will crowd around me. But you shouldn't want to be like that anyway. You kind of have to be more skills than just, I want to be famous and so something.
Well, if you look at artists that have real longevity, you know, they're, as well as being artists, they're business people, aren't they? They're fantastic business people who actually recently have taken some big business decisions and pulled away from, you know, major. If you take what's the company that they now sign you up to do all your Live Nation? You know about Live Nation? Yeah. You know, so Jay-Z has done a big deal with them. Madonna did a big deal with them. You got David Bowie walking away from record labels and doing deals around his back catalogues and things like this. So artists with longevity are great business people. Fewer labels, fewer major labels, you know, world domination of one label perhaps. Who bought EMI? Was it Warner? Yeah, I think it was Warner Brothers bought EMI over. And if you think what Guy Hands paid for EMI, I mean hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds. And they've got nothing, they're worthless, you know.
I suppose it depends on what's more important to you. Like, for me, I'd rather have 50 independent labels with different tastes, different branding, rather than 5 that are corrupt and run the whole scene and decide what goes where.
What's quite interesting is how independent labels can actually kind of drive the scene, the music scene. You know, I don't think that the majors have ever been innovators. I think much of that innovation has often happened at that kind of independent label level. And I put there the Live Nation model. It's a fantastic business model, you know, where they're doing deals around your touring, proceeds of touring, proceeds of merchandising.
What is it? I've not heard of it.
So, on a very simple case, there are two different models. The first one is the kind of Madonna model, where basically she's kept all the rights to her music, but for I think it was about 100 million or something like that. All the proceeds of tours, or they get a share of proceeds of tours, proceeds of merchandising, and a proceeds of record sales. They're not a record company. Yeah, because actually what the big acts have realised is the money is to be made in touring. That's where the money is. It's not through selling records. You know, to get rich from selling records, you have to sell a hell of a lot of records for a long period of time. But I know the biggest deal they've done is with Jay-Z, where, and I don't quite understand the model because he's kept control of, and he's also done distribution deals with some majors as well.
I think the real danger here, Matt, is that they call them 360 deals because they cover everything, your touring, your merchandise, they get the cut of everything that all the money you generate. And the danger is that because it's now becoming an established model, it's fine if you're a huge artist who can dictate the terms, but if you're a small up-and-coming band who needs developing, then you've put all your eggs in one basket, your key man loses interest in you, or your key woman, and you are in big trouble, and you are tied into Live Nation or whoever that company is, and you can't go to your publisher and say we're having problems, or your booking agent. No. You're stuck with this one...
Yeah, I mean, it's very low risk for Live Nation because they are only dealing with kind of global phenomenon, really, like Madonna and Jay-Z and people like that. That point you've made there about your key man, even if you have a record contract, often that may have come about through a relationship with a particular A&R man or woman. And if they ever leave the record company, your voice within that record company is gone because they are your champion in that record company. I've seen it happen, actually. It's really quite interesting.